Hello, Ramblers. That's my friend Emma. This week I got to pick the topic, and
She's reading
it
a
was
book.
no, she is reading. She's a nerd fighter. She's called Super Ginger on Twitter. Anyway, yeah. So this week I chose the topic of video games and are they low culture or high culture. Now I should explain what I mean by low culture and high culture. Normally, video games, comics. Give me something that's quite low culture. Like pop culture. Tabloids to an extent, but they are low culture, are considered to be low culture, so they're less meaningful and less important than high culture. So an example of that might be the opera or the fine arts. Now I feel this, or proper literature. Now I feel this is quite insulting to video games because there are plenty of video games that have real story and are driven by narrative. And yeah, there are some really low culture video games out there, but that's the same with books and with songs and I suppose even opera. I'm not an expert or know anything about opera, but I'm sure there are some that aren't as good as some other ones. Now, for me, video games, I normally pick ones that have that narrative, so I play the role-playing type games. And granted, some games that I've played are quite have aspects of them which are quite bad. For example, I love the Final Fantasy series, and there are elements in that which are low culture, but there are plenty of good elements within them which have high culture. Recently, I played Final Fantasy 13, which is quite linear, so that could be argued to not be a good video game, but it does have elements of goodness within it. But I feel like video games are sometimes just categorized all as low culture, but I think everything has aspects of low culture within it. But yeah, I think video games are becoming, with the enhancements in graphics and voice acting and just the effort that now goes into them, I think can be just as good as a high culture book. There's a game called Portal. Now, while this has, while it is a fun game, it's incredibly smart. I'm sure there's not much story to it, but there doesn't really need to be any story to it. It's clever, it's well written, it's humorous, and I would put it up there as a high culture game. It's part of a world of Half-Life, I believe it's called. It's small, but it's good, and it shouldn't be just classified as, oh, it's just a throwaway video game. There's Pokemon, which could be described as low culture and kiddish and not important, but you look at the impact it's had on the world and what cultural references it's had, and sure, it can be seen as quite boring. You do the same thing. You're a 10-year-old boy or girl who goes out into the world with a dangerous animal beast, and you capture other Pokemon. But it also has good elements, like it talks about teamwork and working together and friendship and getting along. And so I think even Pokemon then has elements of being high culture. So, because there are things in the world that are low culture, like if you look at tabloids or really bad newspapers like The Sun, that is low culture. But yeah, to dismiss all video games as low culture is really frustrating. And don't get me even started on the argument that video games cause violence, because they don't. Yeah, that's my topic. I'm sorry that I missed last week's. I just did. That was Emma. This is James. Goodbye.